so that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel, and the Lord does not save by sword and spear. For the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hand. The Lord does not save by sword and spear. If you were to crystallize the message of the story of David and Goliath, that would be it. The battle is the Lord's, but the Lord does not save by sword and spear. This story is no doubt one of the Bible's most familiar to us, but unfortunately, I'm not sure how well we understand it. You see, very quickly, we turn David and Goliath into a self-help, your best life now kind of story. I think it might be our culture's favorite Bible story. We think of David and Goliath as sort of a parable of American idealism. It teaches us that even if you are like David, coming from nothing, the youngest brother from some tiny town that no one has ever heard of, if you just trust in God, you can overcome your obstacles, slay your Goliaths, and achieve your personal goals. All it takes is faith. And there is a kernel of truth to that application. David and Goliath is about an underdog who takes down the champion. We read about this 98-pound weakling shepherd pretty boy with only stone and sling, and how he defeats a superior trained soldier decked out from head to toe in armor and weapons. But the twist is that David didn't fight Goliath on Goliath's terms. You see, that's what Saul wanted. King Saul didn't have the vision to conceive of any way to fight the battle besides turning David into some sort of mini Goliath and fighting him on the Philistines' terms. So Saul thought that David needed to be outfitted like a warrior and weighed him down with all that armor and weapons. But like us, Saul missed the point. Saul didn't understand that God chose this little brother to take down Goliath in order to show us that the way of Goliath and the Philistines, the way of coercive power and strength and domination, is bankrupt. That the Lord does not save by sword or by spear. But we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves when we miss the point about the way God saves, because if you keep reading the story of David, you see that he actually forgets it himself. David uses his victory over Goliath and his status as God's chosen as a springboard to achieve his personal goals. Using both sword and spear, David goes on to become this great military leader, the king of Israel, the most famous king in Israel's history. He gets this reputation for killing tens of thousands, according to the next chapter. He's this overnight celebrity. He can do no wrong. He gets everything he wants. He succeeds at everything that he tries to do. But those of you who know your Bible know that's not all of David's story. As with the story of America, there's another side to David. David was not immune from the corruption of all that power. The boy who killed the bully Goliath grows up to be a bully himself. He has an illicit affair with Bathsheba. She becomes pregnant. David tries to cover it up, but fails. And ultimately, he uses his power to cause the murder of an innocent man when he sends Bathsheba's husband Uriah to certain death on the front lines of Israel's battlefield. The Lord does not save by sword and spear. Like the boy David, we all have times when we face our own Goliaths, difficult challenges with the deck stacked against us. And in those times, like David, we're not alone. We take comfort in a God who loves us, who is with us and for us, who suffers alongside us, and who has gone to the depths of human pain on our account. This God hears our cries for help. This God shares in our struggle. And even when we fail, God promises to love us. But like King David, David the giant, we might say, is it not also true that at times we use our faith in God in service of personal ambitions, or to justify all our privilege and power as being well-deserved and fairly earned? I think the gospel compels us to ask that question of ourselves. And that is again where David and Goliath is the paradigmatic Bible story for American self-understanding. Our nation was founded on a David and Goliath story. The misfit band of colonies whose weapons were the ideals of democracy and freedom and the belief that God was on their side won independence against the colossal British Empire whose global power and influence was unmatched and unprecedented. Since then, the United States of America have understood ourselves and indeed been seen by much of the rest of the world as a land of opportunity where anyone from anywhere without a dollar to their name can come and be welcomed, and solely with hard work and faith pull themselves up by their bootstraps and be successful. But on the other hand, our history is filled with examples of ways we have been blinded by our own virtue, our certainty that we are the good guys and that God is always on our side. The doctrine of manifest destiny declared it God's will for the United States to stretch our bounds from sea to shining sea, even by any means necessary. The experience of the American Indian testifies to this fact by the theft of land and the slaughter of life and the forced migration on the Trail of Tears. Which is why we believe that if you are to be wealthy and successful, this myth says that it's because God is on our side, that it's thanks to our faith and hard work. In addition, the American myth of justice for all and equality of opportunity leaves us with difficult questions when we consider the stark inequality of outcomes, especially as they're correlated with other factors like race. What does the American dream imply about those who are faithful but fail? Those who have prayed for strength and not found it? The poor, the sick who lack health care, the homeless. Do they have no one to blame for their status but themselves? Do they really have less faith and work ethic than the rest of us. Before my final year in seminary, I had the privilege of serving as a pastoral intern at St. Charles Avenue Presbyterian Church in New Orleans. A significant portion of my internship that summer was helping lead Camp Rhino. Rhino stands for Rebuilding Hope in New Orleans. It was the church's urban mission camp where youth groups would come from all over the country to be educated about poverty, racism, violence, and other inner city problems confronting New Orleans and other cities. The camp included a visit to St. Anna's Episcopal Church, which is located in an historic neighborhood near the French Quarter. St. Anna's is known throughout the city because since 2007, the church has maintained a murder board. It is pictured on the front page of this morning's bulletin. New Orleans has long been infamous as one of the murder capitals of the United States. In 2007, nearly 200 people were killed in New Orleans, and lots of them happened to be in the church's neighborhood. The rector was new at the time, and he wanted to do something about it. He realized that the way that the murders were reported in local media, just like statistics, they just became almost background noise. People got numb to all the violence. These victims weren't human beings. They were assumed to be criminals, drug dealers, gangsters, people who, in true American fashion, were somehow just reaping what they sowed. So in that year, the church, led by the rector, erected this big billboard right by its entrance, right next to the sidewalk. It became known as the murder board because on it, the church has recorded the name, age, and cause of death of every murder victim in the city since 2007. It's updated every week. It's the congregation's attempt to memorialize victims that most are quick to forget, and to bring attention to a problem that most would prefer not to think about. When you go to the church and stand on the sidewalk and read the names, your heart breaks. The victims are sons and daughters, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters. Going down the list, you see so many that are just 17 years old, 24, 9, 30, 5 months. And then next to that, the entries read, shot, stabbed, shot, shot, beaten, shot, homicide, shot, 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 shot. The Lord does not save with sword and with spear. But in a world where we who are in power insist that the system is fair and the playing field is level, and if you can't rise to a decent living, you have no one to blame but your own lack of faith and work ethic, in that world, it's easy to get alienated and to hate the system. In that world, The world the activist, author, and theologian Cornell West has described as black nihilism, while the Lord does not save with sword and spear, the alienated and disenfranchised turn to guns and bullets. They've seen what happens when you play by the rules. You still can't get ahead. And when those in power make it clear over and over and over again that the rules are not going to change anytime soon, the thinking becomes strikingly similar to the sea to shining sea mentality of manifest destiny. I'm going to take care of me and mine and get what I can by any means necessary. Above all of the names on the murder board is the opening verse from Psalm 46, which we used in our call to worship this morning. God is our strength and refuge, a very present help in trouble. These words can perhaps bring us a measure of comfort in the wake of a death of a loved one. They're frequently quoted at funerals when all feels hopeless and we need God to be a refuge and strength. But I think more than death, they're even more important for how we live our life. They're similar to the words David trusted when facing Goliath. He did not put his faith in Saul's armor or the weapons of war, the worldly instruments of strength, but in God and God's strength. And that is the crucial difference between the American dream and the life of Christian faith. Our theology of the American dream makes your relationship with God a self-interested decision. Follow Jesus so you will be happy. Have faith in God so you will be successful. But the theology of the life of faith completely reorders what your interests are. Following Jesus fulfills you and gives your life new purpose, but it won't necessarily make you happy. And having faith in God no doubt changes your attitude toward worldly success. So with that in mind, I hope we can come to a better understanding of the story of David and Goliath. And that better understanding can help us redeem the American dream. We can reimagine what it means to believe that we're chosen by God. We can reimagine what it means to believe that anyone here can be great and successful. We must redefine success. Success and salvation don't come through sword and spear. Success and salvation aren't equated with wealth and power and privilege. Because you see, the message of Jesus was the same message. The God of Israel is the Lord of the whole world. And the Lord does not save by sword and spear. Jesus also confronted his own Goliath with this message. The religious elites and the Roman Empire. And if David's victory over Goliath was surprising given the odds, Jesus' victory is more improbable still. Because in Jesus' story, God's chosen one walks right up to Goliath. And instead of Goliath falling to the ground, it is Jesus who is nailed to the cross. Talk about a peculiar victory. talk about a countercultural success story. Toward the end of his career, Martin Luther King Jr. wrote a lot about redefining the American dream. Only he called it the drum major instinct. The American desire to be out in front, to be leading the parade. He said that the great issue of life is to harness the drum major instinct. Because if we don't, we see this constant need to compete and keep up with the Joneses. And every time we're successful with that, we start to believe that we are better than other people. We stop seeing others as children of God, as Jesus sees them, and instead see them as competitors to be evaluated based on their armor, the size of their house, where they went to school, the car they drive, or maybe the color of their skin, according to Dr. King. But just as I don't want to give up on the American dream, Dr. King said we don't have to destroy the drum major instinct. We have to harness it. If we want to earn first place and be the best, then good for us, as we should. If we want to be important, if we want to be great, we can still be followers of Jesus. Don't give up on the drum major instinct, King said. It is a good instinct if you use it right. Keep feeling the need for being important. Keep feeling the need for being first. But I want you to be first in love. I want you to be first in moral excellence. I want you to be first in generosity. That is what I want you to do. And that is our charge as disciples. Jesus was called to the cross, and the good news is the work he did on that cross was not our burden to bear. It was Jesus calling alone. Instead, perhaps we are called to cross the street, to cross out of our enclaves of wealth and importance, to cross boundaries of racial and social division, and to cross out the myths we tell ourselves about our own accomplishments and success. So by King's definition, brothers and sisters, I am confident that God desires for us importance and greatness. God is with us, on our side, if we will take God's. So having that assurance, let us cast our lot not with the swords and spears and armors of the world, but with the God who breaks the bow and shatters the spear, the God whose wisdom is foolishness, whose strength is weakness, but whose power is beyond measure. Thanks be to that God. Amen.